From Washington, the McLaughlin Group, the American original. For over 3 decades, the sharpest minds, best sources, hardest talk.
Issue 1, Barry's legacy.
In a country as wealthy as the United States, every person should have access to high-quality health care that they can afford. That's something I'm proud of. I believe in. Saving the world economy from a Great Depression, that was pretty good. The work that we did to get the possible nuclear weapons that Iran was developing out of Iran, and doing so without going to war, is something I'm very proud of. And I think that I have been true to myself during this process. I don't. Sometimes I look back at what I said when I was running for office and what I'm saying today, and they match up.
Asked about his legacy while visiting the United Kingdom, President Obama was confident, admitting some disappointments. Mr. Obama noted his administration has been successful. True, Barack Obama entered office in January 2009, 7 years ago, full of optimism. But it's clear that today's president is less idealistic and a little more gray. Rate Obama's presidency.
John, there are 4 ratings variously for presidents: great, near great, average, and poor. I don't think, even though he did do a good job presiding over the recovery of the United States, economic recovery, it wasn't the robust recovery of Reagan or Clinton. He's also got his Obamacare, which is an achievement, and I think his Iran agreement is achievement, but both those two are really subject to possible reversal. I think, though, that in giving him a rating, one of the major achievements is he's an African American and the first African American president, and he won by 2 margins of plus 50%. On the downside as a political leader, the Democratic Party under him has been wiped out in 2010 and 2014, been reduced to what it was in the 20s. I don't think you can call him great, and I don't think you can call him near great. My guess is his friends are going to call him average, and the Republicans are going to say poor.
He wanted to be a transformative president in the image of Ronald Reagan. He didn't agree with Reagan's policies, but Reagan changed the country. Barack Obama has changed the country. Politically, he has brought to the fore what's called the rising American electorate: young people, minorities, single women. Achievement-wise, he got health care for all, which is something every president since Teddy Roosevelt over 100 years tried to get and failed. His remaking of the financial markets, it's not perfect, but it does lessen the odds that we can fall into a Wall Street-made recession, which is what he inherited when he came in. And the fact that the recovery isn't robust enough, it was a very different kind of recession that he inherited. It was created by greed and derivatives and exploitation of a housing bubble that burst. So the circumstances were very different, and I don't think he's gotten enough credit for what he did in bringing the country back. And Barney Frank had a very funny bumper sticker after the financial meltdown. He said, "It would have sucked worse if it weren't for me." And I think that's kind of true. I mean, it's hard for the president to take full credit for bringing us back from that near depression, but I think I'm ready to give him full credit.
Does President Obama have an exaggerated sense of his own accomplishment?
Yeah, I think he really does. Look, I think the economy, that we talk a lot about the economic recovery. And to some degree, I think some of the Wall Street reforms were positive. I think a lot of them weren't. But I also think that in terms of you looking at the economy, the recovery in terms of the historical precedent, it's one of the slowest in American history. And that says something. I also think, labor participation rates, that's a problem, that people are disengaging from the economy. You see a continuing lack of consumer confidence. On the same side, in terms of foreign policy, the Iran deal, I'm very skeptical of that. I think the Iranians are breaching it. They're going to do their ballistic missile research, and then they will break out. And it's never coming back, the sanctions, because the Europeans will never allow it, let alone China and Russia. On the positive note for the president, look, I think it is true that more people are engaged with American politics in minority communities and young people. They are moving to the left, I think, in a lot of ways. I think it's a wake-up call for Republicans to try and win them back. But broader participation is a positive thing in a democracy, and he gets credit for that. And then finally, I would just say that in the terms of moving the Democratic Party to the left, you see both Bernie and Hillary bring off that if you talk about the idea of transformation, he has achieved that.
What about education, the environment, interracial relations, inequality, debt, space exploration, infrastructure,
Got a notepad?
What?
I don't need a notepad. I can
security,
give my answers very briefly here.
sports, arts, housing, energy, unemployment, the markets, happiness, moral values, trade, taxes versus regulations, job creation versus unemployment, innovation, I'm almost finished,
Okay.
criminality index, GDP, international confidence, the dollar, inflation. What about those areas?
Well, congratulations. You finished your list before we finished the administration. I was a little worried about that. But as you can see already, reaction on rating President Obama falls down along party lines. What a surprise. This has been the pattern that we have seen in public reactions, and I expect it to continue. I think President Obama, if he doesn't deserve an A rating now, will deserve one in hindsight as we get farther away from the current status quo and get a chance to look back. But the reason why I say that is because, first of all, look, he came into office with two wars going on and a major recession, which is something that no president's ever had to come into office with before. He has.
Now he's got 3 wars going on.
Yeah, well, it depends on how you look at it, doesn't it? I mean, he did get us out of Iraq, but now we're back in. With Iraq and Afghanistan.
Let me ask you, Clarence, about economics.
Nevertheless,
Let me ask you about
I've only started the list, Pat. I've got to get to the rest of it.
All right, well, let me ask you about economics, because the great driving force in this campaign is Donald Trump, what trade deals have done to the American worker. Bernie Sanders, they've been left out, they've been held back, no increase in real incomes. You got to put that in there in his economic package, his economic success.
None of that started with Obama.
No.
All of those are
the
results of trends that have been going on since the 50s, Pat. You look at the divide between rich and poor. Who was it? Charles Murray a couple of years ago wrote a book in 2012 about this. And coming apart. We're still coming apart. And I don't see either party really addressing this in the long range.
I agree with you, but how does that say he's
right
a
issues,
success?
but he's the wrong leader, wrong
How is he
messenger
a success?
for those issues.
How is he a success?
Nobody's perfect.
Let Eleanor in.
Because he asked me how Obama was a
No,
success.
you're having
he did. You look at the issues that are popular with young people. He has gained ground on those. He also did establish a health care plan that offers health care for all. You could right down the line. The big problem I see isn't that he has an exaggerated view of his own achievement, but he hasn't sold himself well enough, as well as he should.
Look,
Ever since the first administration, he doesn't toot his own horn enough for the achievements that he has made.
Nobody's perfect, but he has moved the chess pieces in the right direction in a whole area of policies. And climate change, I think we look at the difference in terms of oil usage when he first came into office and the rise of solar energy and alternative sources. And I think we can't let this discussion go by without mentioning that a Congress controlled by Republicans willfully gave him zero cooperation. We should have had a massive infrastructure spending, which would have helped with a lot of those economic issues you just raised.
Let me concede your point. There's no doubt about it. There's been obstruction and the rest of them. But the point is he hadn't succeeded. His party's been wiped out. He personally, politically, has done extremely well. He's at 50% after 7 years. Very good. The Democratic Party's back to 1928.
The party's been wiped out because of gerrymandered elections and midterm elections when people don't show up. And wait till November, Pat. The Democrats are coming back.
I need my second turn.
Thanks to Mr. Trump.
I think you look at the federal level, but the state level, Democrats have been annihilated. I think that's where conservatives have that opportunity on economic issues to talk about. The president coming in with the transformational, the idea of hope and change. Eleanor mentions Congress not dealing with him. There have been some very ridiculous comments from Republicans in Congress. But I would say manifestly, one of the problems is that this president has not, in a significant, tangible sense, beyond the PR, beyond the anecdotes on television, reached out to Republicans. That's what you hear on the Hill behind the scenes with them.
Republicans have been so cooperative in
Well,
reaching
but he's
out
the
to him,
president.
haven't they? I mean, nobody
level,
believes
but
that,
also
Tom.
the entitlement reform. We haven't had serious
How did
entitlement reform,
Reagan
and that's
work
critical.
with a
to my-
Democratic Congress
Right.
and get all the great things done he got
Because-
done?
Because
Clinton and Gingrich.
he had no choice. It was a majority
No,
Democratic
also
Congress.
because Tip O'Neill could deliver Democrats.
Tip O'Neill
The
helped us on
Republican,
Contra
excuse
aid.
me, the
Right.
Republicans cannot deliver their votes. Paul Ryan has been unable to get a budget because the
these are
Freedom Caucus
excuses,
won't give
Eleanor.
him the votes.
These are excuses.
The
Look,
reasons-
Tip
No,
O'Neill.
They're
reasons.
reality,
U.S.
Pat.
this and that.
Reality.
Tip O'Neill did nothing to help Reagan get those tax cuts, or Reagan to get his MX missile, or Reagan to get aid to the Contras. Nothing.
He did,
Tip
O'Neill didn't help him.
Social
I
Security.
recall boll weevil Democrats who
they were excellent.
gave a lot. Yes.
That's right.
Exit question. Who deserves the most credit for saving the world economy from a second Great Depression? Barack Obama or Ben Bernanke?
I think they both do. I think that a lot of the things they did in 2008, 2009, some of which Republican Party opposed, I think they basically rescued the American economy. I think the United States, to a great degree, rescued the world economy. But again, he's had 8 straight years, and not once has he gotten up to 3% growth. So it is not a robust recovery.
At least it's a recovery.
At least
Barney
it's
Frank was right. Barney Frank was right. It would have sucked worse.
Right. With unemployment going from 10% to 5%, with jobs being created for, I think, 71 months in a row, you can't call that a failure.
I agree, though. We do have
You
some
can't call
income
that a
inequality.
failure.
Some people are their lives are improving faster than others, and it goes right along the lines of the high school diploma. Those homes that do have something more than a high school
American
diploma
test
doing better than
scores,
others, and that's why Donald Trump is doing as well as he is.
American test scores have plummeted under Barack Obama
Depends on
across the board.
what school system. Some systems are doing better than they were before, but that's a real broad topic. And schools are local. You know, this is really not a federal program.
They share credit for that, and yes, it's positive, but there are major structural problems with the economy, and the deficit, which the CBO says will go up in 2017, and the debt is a critical concern for my generation.
He's doubled the national debt.
So they say.
He's doubled the national debt.
So they say, but if
Yeah.
you're not a deficit hawk, it doesn't bother you as much as the
Right.
current unemployment that's going on.
Well, when
and the
interest
current
rates
lack
are
of
spiraling,
development
we've got
in
a problem.
neighborhoods with high unemployment.
Right. The deficit
poor
has
will
fallen
help us.
faster in the last several years than any time since after
Yeah.
World War II. So,
Because
you know,
the deficit-
numbers don't lie.
Good
The
point.
deficit was at Mount Everest, and it has fallen somewhat.
Right.
Well, no, but it's going to spiral again because we haven't reformed entitlements. This is the math.
But that was one of those recovery aids that, that you were complimenting a moment ago, which was getting money into the economy. That's what Obama's economic surge did.
Yeah.
A financial
Wow.
surge.
Well, who deserves the most credit?
Well, you asking me that?
Bernanke or?
No,
or,
Pat's right.
Reagan?
They both do. I mean, a problem as complicated as the economy, anything you do in a positive sense is going to help. I think people who want to dismantle the Fed, they don't really understand
What do you-
how.
Yeah, but
What do you think?
Bernanke was the president's appointment. So in the end, this goes on the positive ledger of the president. However much you want to dilute the
What
credit.
does the doctor think?
I think the Federal Reserve and the Secretary of the Treasury prevented the Great Recession.
Let's hear it for Alexander Hamilton.
And so the president was kind of irrelevant. He's just a figurehead.
Less important.
You heard my answer.
I disagree with it. Okay.
Let's hear it for Hamilton.
I have no doubt that you did. Issue 2, legacy of a lady.
First and foremost, she's the best mother I know, and my daughters are amazing because of her parenting. I am labor, she's management. An emphasis on girls' education and making sure that our policies are aligned with the basic wisdom that countries that do not educate their girls and treat women well will fall behind.
President Obama spoke fondly of his wife, Michelle Obama. The First Lady, Mr. Obama says, has been a remarkable leader, on efforts to reduce childhood obesity and promote female rights around the world.
Washington, the McLaughlin
In the McLaughlin Group November the 6th, 2015 episode, we discussed Mrs. Obama's willingness to advocate on the global stage, including in nations governed by Islamic law. These efforts and their attached controversies have won Mrs. Obama the respect of many. Still, not everyone will recall Mrs. Obama's time as First Lady with fondness. Namely, some conservatives lament what they described as Mrs. Obama's nanny statism. Question is, here's a good record. I ask you, Eleanor.
Yes, an unequivocal yes. And I also want to point out in the last segment when I gave President Obama credit for appointing Ben Bernanke, that was actually President Bush's appointment. So we can spread the credit around for saving the country even further. Michelle Obama has gone through 8 years without a whiff of scandal, with maintaining high approval ratings. She is an inspirational figure, and her husband is exactly right when he talked about her parenting, and especially in terms of parenting of girls and how she has extended that around the world and in this country. I mean, she holds days where she has college signing days, treating it academics as though they were the latest sports phenomenon. And her attitudes about obesity and eating healthful food and having an organic garden on the grounds of the White House. I mean, it's all positive, and it's not trivial. These are major issues that affect public health. She
has stood up, you especially think about women's rights and also nutrition issues. As much as some conservatives don't like that because they say it's nanny statism, I tend to think conservatives should be worried about having to pay for a subsidized healthcare system with obesity, and so we should be in favor of that. I also think if you look at how the First Lady has conducted herself with her 2 daughters, under a lot of pressure, I have to say. The threats, for example, that the First Lady get in terms of unpleasant people, that is not an easy thing to go through. And so I think she has acquitted herself and through her position as the First Lady of the United States very positively. And at the policy level, I disagree with her, but as a First Lady, good.
I'm reminded of Pat's old boss, Richard Nixon, and who said, he complimented his wife, Pat, who also ran, as he put it. This is what happens with First Ladies until now, or maybe with First Men now with this year's election. But the fact is she's been a very effective role model, really. I think that's what's more important than nanny statism. The fact is that she has been a very good role model who, believe me, people from the community she came from are very proud of her. And I think across the country, people can look with pride upon her as a representative of American values and for showing how outside of government programs, individual people organizing just kids and adults in their own communities can do a lot.
I agree. I think that the President and the First Lady and their daughters have been almost exemplary in the way they have behaved with dignity in the White House. And the President at the White House Correspondents' Dinner has got a sense of humor about things. And the First Lady, I think, I obviously don't agree with a lot of the causes as much as she does, but she has a perfect right to do that, and I think they've handled themselves with dignity. The one exception I would say, I think there's been some pretty big expensive vacations are using Air Force planes that seem to me a little extravagant. But other than that, I think the President set a good example in his personal life. That's all there is to it.
Well, those vacations have been to countries that we need to maintain relations
We'd all
with.
like to go to.
Well, I think you'd have to come up with some hard figures comparing it to other presidents to make the case that they've overspent. They have handled themselves with enormous grace in every area.
Exit question, is it your felt intuition that Michelle Obama will take a cue from Hillary Clinton and launch her own political career post-presidency, yes or no?
My sense is she wants to get out of politics and wants to get out of here.
I don't think she has any appetite for partisan politics, but they're going to stay in Washington until their younger daughter finishes high school. So when you say get out of here, it's not getting out of Washington, at least not right away.
I think policy advocacy on things like women and girls' rights, but not politics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I think that she and her husband both have a great platform to post-White House on a number of domestic issues and international issues as well. And throughout the third world, she's already got a presence and can be very valuable. And I think she'll do that with the kids growing up. They're becoming empty nesters now. So, but I doubt that she's going to run for office. She doesn't have that instinct.
That's very perceptive on your part.
Thank you.
However, it doesn't trade on what I thought would be your strong suit. Mm-hmm. She could start. The answer is yes. She should stay in the political arena, and she could start by running for mayor of Chicago.
I think Valerie Jarrett's more likely to do that than Mrs. Obama.
You're already appraising it.
Sorry?
You're already appraising it. You're not even giving her a chance.
No, well, no, I've given her, I mean, my opinion is grounded in fact, shall we say. I've known these folks for about 20 years.
We know your type, Clarence. Issue 3, conservation conservatives.
Get off this addiction!
Global warming divides American opinion. But today, many environmental scientists lament partisan battles over the causes of and best responses to global warming. They say that such battles distract public attention from other environmental concerns. And with government research grants stretched and the economy on uncertain ground, private investors are in less supply and in more demand. Making matters worse, today, some conservatives believe environmentalists are liberal first and scientists second. A new approach is needed. Writing for Opportunity Lives, Tom Rogan called for new conservative thinking on environmentalism. Quote, in return for regulatory reform that focuses on malicious abuses and not legitimate businesses, we should support the hiring of more criminal investigators to punish environmental criminality. We should also act globally, including via treaty, to protect endangered marine wildlife, end quote. Question, is Rogan right?
Well, firstly,
That's Tom Rogan.
Thank you very much for putting the piece up there. I appreciate it. The point I was making is that on energy issues, and we've had these debates, I'm very sympathetic to the idea of fracking. I think it creates opportunities for employment, social mobility, lowering energy costs. But at the same time, fracking as an example, but Republicans have been too focused on opposing those regulatory areas from Democrats in a positive sense, but not articulating ideas beyond global warming that we could get behind and that would help the environment. And so for one example, where we see at an industrial level very bad polluting, for example, or dumping, that is something that the federal government should prioritize cracking down on, and not the small business owner, the small farmer. And the second point, in terms of you look at, for example, shark finning around the world, what the Chinese are doing, I think there's a call for momentum there because of the damage that does to the marine environment, for conservatives to get behind an effort to say this is not something that should be happening and this is something where we could come together.
Pat Buchanan.
John, you know, we started the EPA under Richard Milhouse Nixon and the Council for Environmental Quality, and in those days when you had buses pouring out the smoke right in your face, you had soot right there in Pittsburgh. You went down the street, it got on your smog over LA, medical waste showing up in the beaches I used to go to as a kid. We were all united on this.
The river catching on fire.
Yeah, rivers catching on fire. The Potomac River polluted. I remember the headline when I was a kid. We all agreed, look, this is a mess and we got to clean it up. We may have disagreed on how fast and which ones go first. But then you get into this issue of global warming and environmentalism, if you will, as an ideology and a virtual political religion. And this is where you run into the traditionalist conservatives say, wait a minute, we don't believe your case is proven. Right. And then they say, we're going to shut you up.
It's not an ideology and it's not a religion. It's a clash with the business interests that are supporting fossil fuels, and it's an economy, and actually a worldwide economy, that's moving away from fossil fuels to alternative ways of keeping us warm and air conditioning and doing everything else. And so this is business interests, and while I applaud the fact that you have caught on to the fact that your generation cares about these issues, and these issues have taken on new dimensions since the old days of the soot and the medical devices on the beach. So I think there's political opportunity for everybody here, and I don't think you can. Your article argues that you should return regulation to the states. That never works because the business interests overwhelm the environmental interests in the states as well, which is why the federal government has to step in the first place in every issue.
What declines the decline of environmentalism?
It's not declined at all. It's on the rise.
Well, one thing I've seen, though, is there was a time when conservatives believed in conservation.
Right.
When it became environmentalism, it seemed like it became more ideological or something. We started seeing more of an ideological divide. But I'm very happy that you are reviving the notion that conservatives do believe in conservation.
If there are disagreements on global warming, there are other areas of possible compromise.
The question I asked was, what explains the decline of environmentalism?
It's become an ideology. That's the reason. It's perceived as that, as a cause of the left, and they want more. They want to transfer wealth to government and then transfer it from governments to international institutions.
That's dressing the issue up in a pretty package. It's basically a clash with business interests. Some people are making money
I'm not at IBM.
Predictions, Pat.
John, I think the British will elect not to depart from the European Union. The race has been sort of divided a bit. I think Barack Obama going over there and arguing against Brexit may have helped turn the tide in favor of staying in the EU.
Legislation to change marijuana from a Class 1 drug, which is right up there along with heroin, will pass and reclassify marijuana so that federal law is no longer in conflict with state law, where marijuana is increasingly legal and saleable in various states.
The government of Iraq will increasingly face very visible pressure from the Iranians in the coming weeks.
Conditional prediction: if Hillary Clinton wins, Judge Garland will be confirmed in the lame duck session.
I predict Saudi Arabia's Vision 2030 plan to wean its economy off dependence on oil will be like the millennial goals. Laudable intentions, but the results will fall far short of the vision. Enjoy Memorial Day weekend. Bye-bye.